Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I am here to review episodes 5 and 6 of Loki. Now this show has been, season 2 of this has been one of the best things going in the MCU. And funny enough, it's very funny that this show is happening simultaneously at the same time that all these negative storylines are coming out. The next video I'll do will probably be on the Marvels. And that movie is pretty much bombed at the box office. So it is pretty funny that Loki is coming out, and actually some stuff on Loki has come out to say that that show isn't doing as hot with the ratings as some of the older shows, despite being such a great show. In fact, if you check Rotten Tomatoes right now, it's not even in the 90s, despite the fact that we all agree that this was a great show. These last 2 episodes in particular work so well together to really get across the deep, rich story that they were telling here with this Loki show. So the entirety of the Loki show, from the beginning, which is ironic because I remember when Marvel first announced all the shows they're going to do, most people said that the show they were least excited for was Loki because they had seen Loki, they wanted new things, they didn't want to see, they wanted new characters, they wanted new things, they didn't want to see these characters that they don't know. And ironically, by the time Loki came around, after Loki came out, and by the time we got to now, we've had a bunch of new characters introduced in the MCU, and people had the opposite feeling about Loki. They're like, oh, thank God Loki's coming out. At least I know that character is going to be good. So, ironically, Loki started off as the show that no one wanted, and became the show that was, you know, as some people said, Andor-like, in terms of how deep and how great the show ended up being. We all thought that Secret Invasion was gonna be Marvel's Andor. Turns out it was Loki season 2. In terms of literally a show that people will tell you that no one asked for, and then they got, and they were like, "Wow, this is unbelievable." But what the show ended up doing, particularly in these last 2 episodes, is really getting to the core of Loki. First of all, episode 5 is episode 4 ended on this crazy cliffhanger that no one knew what the fuck. Like, it was like, what just happened? Victor Timely just disintegrated. We're like, what the fuck just happened? What do we do? It was unexpected. It was shocking. It left everyone speechless. We were like, the timeline, like the thing exploded. We're like, what just happened? Did the timeline explode? Did the MCU just disappear as we know it? And episode 5 starts off, and we still don't have any clue what happened, man. Loki is time slipping again, and everyone in the TVA has disappeared. We have no clue what happened. As it turns out, everyone got placed back in their spots on the timeline. So then we get some little timeline shenanigans. The highlight being seeing Mobius working at a jet ski shop. Yes, Mobius. We get to see they've kind of teased this idea that Mobius hasn't wanted to look into his place on the sacred timeline because he doesn't want to see what he's missing, so to speak. He doesn't want to see what should have been his. He doesn't want to see something good that could have been, and then he can't go back to work at the TVA knowing that he left something good behind, and which is understandable. Like, if you spend your whole life, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you spent if you just woke up there, if you spent most of your life doing something only to realize that there was something else greater that could have been, that should have bugged the hell out of you. It should have been in your mind, so it made sense. But we get to see Mobius in this. We get to see what Mobius left behind, which was 2 children and working with jet skis. He was a single parent on the timeline, working with jet skis. Obviously, he mentions jet skis and how much he loves them all the time. So clearly there are things that, you know, the funny one was Casey being like fucking in Alcatraz. He's like, whoa, okay. Didn't see that one coming. OB is very similar to who he is on the TVA timeline. Like, OB is damn near the same goddamn dude. Like, he's almost the same dude. He's so smart, he was able to create a temp pad in like 19 months. Like, it's crazy. Anywho, all of that was beautifully done. Also seeing that also the reveal that Loki figures out how to control his time slipping was very well done. Him convincing all these guys, convincing all his friends to come back. The reveal that deep down on some level, the real reason he wants to save the TVA is because the TVA is the only place he feels like he has friends and that he belongs. Because everywhere else, you know, he's like, there's nowhere else for me on the timeline. I'm supposed to die on the timeline. Like, these are my friends, and I just want to keep all my friends safe, and I want to have them, and if it means, and even if the greater good means like having to lose them, then I don't even want that version of the greater good. And he's kind of fighting against it. He's kind of fighting against it, like, what do I need to do? And near the end of episode 5, he figures out he can control the time slipping, and he realizes I need to go back and see if I can prevent all this from going down, from going away. Now, throughout the entirety of episode 5, we are under the impression that reality, all the timelines are at risk. But since I'm doing episode 5 and 6 for this review, it's revealed in episode 6 that no, not all the timelines were in danger. No, just all the branch timelines were in danger. The sacred timeline was fine. Like, in fact, that apparently the loom blowing up wasn't as dramatic as it looked, as crazy as it looked. In fact, the only timeline that was safe was the regular MCU 616 timeline, or whatever, movie 616. You know what I mean. Was the movie timeline. The movie timeline is the only timeline that was fine. All the other timelines were screwed, but the movie timeline was perfectly fine. That was what the loot, like, that's what the loot's there for, to protect that timeline. The loot, like, it seems like the sacred timeline, the MCU timeline, is gonna be fine no matter what. Like, that thing's just running, and none of the events of this show actually affected the regular MCU timeline. As it turned out, we didn't know that at the time, but before we figured that out, Loki returned, and Loki kept trying to figure out how to fix it. He did a bunch of time travel things that we all say that we'd probably do with time travel. Like, if you had the ability to live in a moment in time for, like, as long as you wanted to, imagine the things you could do. You could become a master of something in what would appear to be no time to others. You could spend centuries in a moment mastering something, and that's what ends up happening. Is Loki spends so much time trying to fix this loot, trying shit, until eventually he just says, I'm just gonna become a master of all this shit by just studying all this shit over centuries of going back in time, of jumping back and forth through time, until I'm so good at this shit that I've figured it out, that I know this shit better than everyone else here. Eventually, time shenanigans, it gets to the point where it turns out that there actually is no way to fix the loop, because the problem is there's an infinite number of branches. So no matter how big you make the damn machine, it won't be able to handle the branches. Hence, the loom will always blow up, always destroy all the branches, and leave just a sacred timeline. So he goes, okay, I'm gonna have to do one better. He goes back in time to the events of the season 1 finale to prevent Sylvie from killing He Who Remains. And as it turns out, all this was written. We thought He Who Remains, when he got stabbed by Sylvie, was saying, I'll see you soon, because he was talking about his variants that would show up throughout the MCU. What he actually meant was he had already knew that Loki would get these time-slipping powers and come back to this moment to save him, because he had written it, because he had pretty much designed things in a way where it's like, you're gonna have to save me in order to save the universe. So I'll see you soon is basically, I will be back. And that's what it turns out. Turns out now he had written that whole script. He knew Loki would time slip. He knew Loki would find Victor timely. He knew everything that was going on. He'd already written it out, and he had pretty much put Loki in a position where he was like, you're gonna have to kill Sylvie to prevent her from killing me, so that I could keep this thing going, and then we could keep the TVA going, or you let the loom blow up, and all the branch timelines are gone, and you got to start the TVA over from scratch. You just start the TVA, and I just start the TVA over from scratch. But either way, I win. In the end, what conclusion Loki ended up coming to, which was a brave and very bittersweet, very independent. Like the last episode of Loki was very independent. It was the kind of the opposite of how most MCU movies, MCU projects handle the finale. Though Loki has already shown in its season 1 finale that it's willing to do things a bit differently than the typical over-the-top CGI battle for a finale. That it was a very bitter, like, as some people say, it was a bittersweet ending to the season, and probably to the show, because as the director and many people have pretty much said on it, this is a series finale in a way. or at least for the show, this version of the show itself, because it ends with Loki coming to the conclusion that with the combination of his newly found power to basically power over time and space, time itself, you know, because he can just travel through time itself. He has basically has Kang's powers. With his powers over time itself and his powers as a god, he decides to blow up the loom and replace He Who Remains as the energy source to all of these branching timelines. So he literally grabs physically all the branching timelines after blowing up the loom, goes all the way to a throne, sits down and energizes all these branching timelines, allowing all these branching timelines to exist with him as the center power of time itself. So some people have said he's now the god of stories. It's hard to really tell like how that is, but now he's like in the middle of nothingness, unable to be with the people he loved, but he gives all these branching timelines an opportunity and a chance to exist. And although there's these timelines where Kang exists, which was the whole thing in the first place, is that Kang's whole thing was that if you allow these timelines, these branching timelines to exist, more of me will exist, which will cause a multiversal war which will be the end of existence, because basically that's how bad I am. And Sylvie and others have, well, particularly Sylvie, essentially and when Loki came to the conclusion of is that just because it happened once doesn't mean it has to happen. That's kind of free will. It's like just because something bad can happen doesn't mean good can't happen. It doesn't mean it will happen. And it doesn't mean the Avengers can't win. Doesn't mean that this time we can't find a way to win. That doesn't mean sacrificing the multiverse to prevent this from happening. So, which will be what the movies are about, really. It's about figuring out if he's right or wrong. Now, some people have speculated that this will be Tom Hiddleston's last time. He will be back. Especially if he's going to be where he is. There's no doubt in my mind a version of King of Conqueror is going to come for his ass in the Avengers movies. So, in the end, Loki episode 5 and 6 were the best episodes of the show. They're both 10/10s for me. The finale, it's the best finale it's probably the best finale of any of the MCU shows. It was epic. The music score was awesome. It was beautifully done. It was bittersweet. It was something that you don't usually see at a Marvel project, which is a bittersweet ending. Only thing I can think about that is maybe Infinity War. That's about it, really. I mean, there might be some other movies out there. I'll say Guardians 3. Sorry. I'd say Guardians 3 was sort of bittersweet. But no, this was really bittersweet. You're like, at the end, the hero sacrificed himself. And in the end, as many people have pointed out, a character whose very first motivation, who we saw all the way back almost 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. 14 years ago. His motivations were, I want a throne and I deserve a throne. And he wanted it for selfish reasons, but now, too ironically, he took a throne that he doesn't want for the right reasons. It's a very interesting character arc, a very smooth character arc, and they completely justified the existence of this show. Because like I said, a lot of people were like, why are we even making this show? And when you get to the end, you're like, wow, that's an amazing story arc that this particular character went on, and like, I like the fuck out of it. Yeah. Loki episode 5 and 6 get a 10 from me, man. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I enjoyed this show. It was some of the best MCU things they've done so far. And it's proof that the model that they did have, now that they've gone away from, it could have worked if done like that. You know what I mean? But I digress. Anyway, thank you guys for enjoying Comic Game Movie Show. Please like and subscribe. And what did you think of Loki season episodes 5 and 6, or, you know, season 2 in general? Comment below and let me know. Thank you guys again. See you in the next one.